It's that time again where we talk about upcoming Steam games and their relation to the Steam Deck, namely how well they'll run. This time I'm going to change things up a little bit. We'll have two different segments, one for games that I think will run on Steam Deck quite well and be a good fit, and another section where I think the games won't run well or won't be a good fit on Steam Deck. But before that, if you like this video or any other video I make, please like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends. Spreading the good gospel of high-tech low life lets the YouTube algorithm know that I'm doing well. So without further ado, let's begin then. So the first game I want to talk about, or rather first expansion I want to talk about today, is Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail. Last month saw the release of many DLCs and expansion packs for various games. This one, however, was actually slated to be released last month, but it was delayed about a week so that everyone could play the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC for Elden Ring. Final Fantasy XIV works excellently on Steam Deck, and there's a variety of different tutorials for getting 14 launcher up and running. That said, I'm not sure if I have a tutorial up for Final Fantasy XIV either. Maybe I should go one up. But honestly, I'm not really a Final Fantasy XIV player, but I've heard from so many of my friends that it's so good and that I should play it and whatnot. Dawntrail releases on July the 2nd, but you can actually play Final Fantasy XIV right now, and there's a pretty lengthy free trial as well, up to level 60, I might add. The next game I want to talk about is a game called Once Human. You know, Once Human is a survival crafting sort of MMO-like. I'm not entirely sure if it's an MMO or not. I tried the demo, and the demo runs surprisingly decent, though admittedly I'm obviously not at endgame yet and the demo wouldn't let you get that far, so there is a chance that the game could start lagging out towards the endgame. But honestly, it's hard to know without actually playing the game, but you could play through the beginning and probably middle stages of the game. Once Human releases on July the 9th. This next game I want to talk about is a game that I actually covered in a prior Next Fest, more specifically the Next Fest that happened earlier this month, Hookah Haze. If I had to describe it, it's kind of like Valhalla cyberpunk bartending action, but instead of drinks, it's hookah. If I had to describe hookah, I would describe it as a sort of less douchey but more pretentious style of vaping. But I'm probably wrong on that factor too. But the game looks kind of interesting. It looks vaguely interesting. The demo ran really well on Steam Deck, but it's basically a visual novel, so why wouldn't it, right? Anyways, the game releases on June the 10th. The next game I want to talk about is a game called Angerfoot. Angerfoot is a boomer shooter with an extra emphasis on kicks, in every sense of the word. You not only shoot your enemies, but you can also kick them with various different footwear with different special abilities. This boomer shooter looks like it could run quite well on Steam Deck. But of course, if you're gonna play this on your Steam Deck, I recommend learning how to use gyro, because boomer shooters are just better with gyro aim, you know? Anyways, this game releases on July the 11th. The next game on this list is a game called Fallen Leaf. It's a 2D platformer, and I have a sort of soft spot for these more action-oriented 2D platformers. You know, it kind of gives off a Mega Man vibe, if you will. It does look quite interesting. I kind of wish they had a Next Fest demo to try out during the Next Fest. I probably would have covered it then, but whatever. I have no reason to believe that this game won't run well on Steam Deck. It looks like the type of game that should run at like 60 FPS or even 90 FPS on the OLED if you have one. Fallen Leaf releases on July the 15th. The next game on this list is Gestalt, Steam and Cinder. You know, I've actually covered this game already in one of these videos before. Last I recall, this game was supposed to be released sometime in May, but now it's supposed to be releasing on July the 16th. For those not in the know, this is a Metroidvania, and I've actually covered this in a prior Next Fest, but that was a while ago. The Next Fest demo ran quite well, and I have no reason to believe that this game wouldn't run well on Steam Deck. Also releasing on the 16th is Riviera, The Promised Land. It's an older RPG that was released for the WonderSwan Color, which was then remastered for the Game Boy Advance, and then subsequently remastered for the PSP, and now remastered for PC. It's actually part of a series known as the Department Heaven series, which honestly I've only played this one. There's some additional features, though I kind of wish we could disable the sprite blurring, because the sprite filters they don't really look that great in my opinion. That's just me though. I have no doubts about this running extremely well on Steam Deck, but I mean, due to this being a JRPG, you could play this at 30 FPS and save yourself some extra battery. The next game I want to talk about is a game called Meifumado. This is an action RPG of the Souls-like variety. This was a Kickstarter project that many people believe to be, well, dead. The developer took the money and ran, or something like that. Looking closer, it seems more like a 2D take on Sekiro, which is a good thing because I think Sekiro's From Software's best designed combat. So hopefully this game does release this time, and the release date is looking to be on July the 18th. But also releasing on July the 18th is an unusual game called Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess. I'm still not entirely sure what sort of game this is supposed to be. On the onset, it looks like a hack and slash, but there are many elements of what seems to be tower defense. This new Capcom IP has to be one of the weirdest in a while, and I am quite interested. Capcom's PC ports tend to be pretty good, but Capcom's never really made a tower defense or even really an RTS before, at least not to my knowledge, so it's hard to know whether or not this game will run quite well on Steam Deck. But I'm gonna bet that it'll run pretty well. The next game on this list is a game called Veritus. It's an action RPG that kind of looks like Zelda, more specifically the Game Boy Color Zeldas. The resemblance to Zelda extends beyond just the looks. It also looks like it plays like Zelda, so this game does look quite interesting, almost like an old school Zelda. And it looks like a Game Boy Color game, so I have no reason to believe that this game won't run well on Steam Deck. This game releases on July the 22nd. The next game on this list is a game called CONSCRIPT. This is actually a game that I've covered in the Next Fest a while back. Think old school survival horror gameplay set in World War I, considered to be one of the deadliest wars we've ever had. Choosing to make a survival horror game rather than an FPS is a interesting stylistic choice, and as such, this is probably going to be one of the more unique World War I games. As stated before, I've actually tried the Next Fest demo a while back, and it ran quite well on Steam Deck, so I have no reason to believe that the game won't do so. This game releases on July the 23rd. Now, there are a couple of games releasing on July the 25th, but there is one I want to talk about first. Lost Castle 2. It's a 2D roguelike beat 'em up, and it's a sequel to a game that I've actually never played before, to be honest, but it looks quite fun. I love beat 'em ups. That said, what makes beat 'em ups so exciting is the combat. You know, the combat depth and whatnot. I'm interested in seeing how far the combat goes. Also releasing on July the 25th is Earth Defense Force 6. You are defending Earth against a wide variety of different monsters, creatures, and anything else really. If I had to describe it, it's kind of like Starship Troopers, or, you know, more recently Helldivers 2. But you're not just fighting against giant bugs. The game doesn't look super graphically demanding, so I think this will run pretty well on Steam Deck. The next game on this list is a live service game, SMITE 2. SMITE 2 is like what CS2 was to CSGO. It's a quote-unquote sequel, but it's not really a sequel. It's sort of a more revamped, overhauled version of the existing game, and SMITE ran pretty well on Steam Deck. But will SMITE 2 run well on Steam Deck? A lot of these mega popular live service games tend to be geared towards running well on lower end hardware, and the Steam Deck is no exception. And while the game may look more graphically demanding than SMITE 1, that doesn't necessarily mean the Steam Deck won't run it well. In fact, the CEO of Hi-Rez tweeted out a picture showing him playing the game on a Steam Deck. This new game, or rather new update, releases on July the 30th. There's also one more game that I think is pretty unusual, but something that might be worth consideration. It's a game called Life Is Not Auto. You ever think about how when someone tells you that you're manually breathing, you have to manually breathe yourself? This is that game. You have to essentially manage your bodily functions while also paying attention to your surroundings, lest you die a horrible death by forgetting to breathe. This is one of those really weird high concept games that kind of draws me in because of how unusual it is. This game looks like it'll run pretty well on Steam Deck. Anyways, this game releases sometime in July. There's no set date in July, so it could release earlier or later. So I think that covers all of the games that I think will run pretty well on Steam Deck. But now it's time to talk about some new releases that I'm not sure will run well on Steam Deck. And most of these games kind of have a common theme. The first of which is a game called The First Descendant. It's supposed to be a new live service shooter by Nexon. The First Descendant actually had a beta a while back, and I actually tried out the game on my Steam Deck, and guess what? It wouldn't work on the Steam Deck because of anti-cheat issues. And even aside from that, the game does look quite graphically demanding, so I don't think it'll run well on Steam Deck, even if it did work. Another major release that I'm not sure will run well is a game called Cataclismo. Cataclismo looks like an RTS, and while I think RTSs will run pretty well on Steam Deck during the early stages, towards endgame I don't think it'll run well at all. Now some may say that this is an issue. I mean, people played Vampire Survivors on Steam Deck a while back, and that lagged towards the end of a run. But RTSs are kind of a different beast, not to mention they tend to be more CPU intensive. So overall, I'm not really confident in Cataclismo's performance on the Steam Deck, but I think the devs might prove me wrong. Who knows, maybe they will, hopefully they do. Another sort of RTS that I don't know will run well on Steam Deck is Stormgate. It's being developed by a couple of former Blizzard developers, and these guys have worked on Blizzard's RTSs like Warcraft 3 or StarCraft 2. This is a free-to-play RTS, and you know my opinions on RTSs on Steam Deck. I don't think they're a great fit for the Steam Deck, primarily due to performance. I don't think this game will run well on Steam Deck. And I think that about covers all of the major releases and some minor releases in July. July seems to be more of a light month for releases. There aren't too many major releases out there outside of Dawntrail, and even a Capcom game like Kunitsu-Gami seems more like a AA release, a more experimental release. Anyways, I think that about covers it for this video. There isn't much more I need to talk about, but if there's any other games I might have missed, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please press the like button and check out our other videos. And if you like those other videos as well, be sure to press the subscribe button and share the good gospel of high-tech lowlife with your friends. Furthermore, we have a community Discord for enlightened individuals such as you. And if you wish to further support high-tech lowlife, be sure to check out our Patreon page. Links in the description.